Seeing the wax anatomical models of La Spicola Museum is a spectacular experience for the visitors. Let's see how were these models made during the 18th century. The models were manufactured in the museum workshop, where knowledgeable and skilled natural philosophers, anatomists, and artisans worked together. A natural philosopher picked up an illustration from a renowned publication which showed well particular anatomical details, especially recent discoveries. An anatomist then prepared similarly positioned preparations from real cadavers. To ensure accuracy and to counter continuous decay, many corpses were prepared over time to serve as references for each model along with drawings. New anatomical discoveries were often made during the modeling process. The hardest part of the process was making of the model itself. Making the model began with molding and casting. The artisan made a replica of the specimen in clay, rough wax, or chalk. A rope was placed on the specimen that helped in removing the mold from the specimen in halves. The artisan then covered the replica of specimen in plaster. Sometimes, the artisans worked directly from actual specimen. For example, real bones could be used for making the molds. While the plaster was still soft, the rope was removed, cutting the mold into two halves. Once the plaster dried, the mold was removed and cleaned. For casting, white wax from Smyrna, Chinese wax, or Venetian wax were commonly used. The wax was melted slowly in a water bath so that it didn't discolor. Materials like turpentine and resins were added to change the properties of wax, such as elasticity. Color pigment was also added. Before putting the wax inside the mold, the inside of the mold was moistened with lukewarm water and rubbed with soft soap so that the wax cast could be removed later easily. Then, molten wax was painted inside the mold layer by layer. Hollow models were filled with rags, wooden chips, or hemp to make them stable, and sometimes given an armature of iron bars. The edges of the wax cast were heated, and both halves were then brought together and fused. The mold was removed, and the seam was worked on with hot wax. This mold could now be used again and again. The different parts were then assembled. Blood vessels and nerves were made out of threads or thin wires dipped in wax. They could also be painted on the surface of the model. To make the hair of the model, real animal or human hair were inserted one at a time. Some details were painted on the surface of the model. Finally, the model was covered in a shiny varnish which protected it from dust and also made it look more like living tissue. The model was placed on an elegant wooden table covered with silk cloth. A drawing label with numbers accompanied each model. At the base of the showcases were drawers, in which a list of part names was kept that complemented the drawing. Thus, after many months of hard work by many people, a model at the La Spicola Museum was ready to amaze the visitors.